Everybody's talking at me. I can't hear a word they're saying. Only Diego.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, the Whoppies, and from me. So many people have asked to see the Whoppies that I thought, especially as how I've had a rather hard time of it recently, because I lost one of my dearest friends, but I am not really able to say much about it at this moment out of deference to the family. So I will just move on with this and say that it's such a joy to have these Whoppies. They are so life-enhancing. Look at how they have grown. This is the Yicker Man. He is so adorable. He is such a little personality. He's a born guy. He's just such a gorgeous guy. Macho for days. There's this little one that I'm giving away to a friend. Isn't she gorgeous? And then there is this little one that is going to be my baby. Mwah! With Mickey. Oh, look at her. Isn't she divine? And look at how huge they are. I mean, if they keep on growing at this rate, I'm going to have to put a freeze on their eating. Oh, they certainly are healthy. Oh, and Mickey is such a good mummy, aren't you, Mickey? You're the best mummy in the whole wide world. Oh, it's absolute contentment with Mickey, the puppies, and me. And Treasure. Did you hear the little boy grunting? He's such a grunter. He is just sweetness and light itself. Oh, life is so good when you have Whoppies. And I have to say, Treasure, the cat, is now allowed onto the bed with me. Treasure was not allowed onto the bed for the first 2 weeks. Well, I'm not sure that Mickey banned him from the bed, but he sensed that Mickey didn't want him near the puppies. And can you believe, for 2 weeks he kept his distance, and then gradually he edged his way forward, and now everything is fine, and Treasure walks right past the puppies, and Mickey doesn't mind. Isn't it wonderful when love prevails and respect prevails? I mean, nobody taught those animals to have respect for each other, but it is instinctive. I have to say, life-enhancing people and life-enhancing animals, and indeed life-enhancing things, possess respect. Without respect, I don't think anything is possible. And on that note, I'm going to take them upstairs now, and I will be right back. Mix, ready for us to go? Come, say goodbye to everybody. Come on, come. Mix. Goodbye, goodbye. Yes, baby girl, I love you too. Let's go. Come on. Oops, don't squash the puppy. Come on. I'll be back in a second. The joys of Whoppies. There really is nothing in life better than wonderful pets, is there? Renee Pipiak says, have you named your puppy yet? They are all so adorable. Good job, Mickey. Well, I have named my puppy. Yes, I have. I'm not 100% sure, because normally I name my dogs after loved ones who sometimes aren't here, but sometimes are. And I do have a loved one that I would like at some point to name a puppy after. The problem is I'm not crazy about the name itself, but I loved her. Her name was Frances Bacall. She was my guardian when I was at school in New York. And I have to tell you, I would not be sitting here drawing breath now if it hadn't been for Frances. She was a true lifesaver at a time that I needed loving kindness, and I got it from her. But I'm not 100% sure I want to call the dog Frances. So I have another name, Aurora, that I think I'd like to call it. But I haven't finally made up my mind yet, so we'll see. Canal Gamma says, "Hello, Lady C. You are ridiculously funny without the benefit of a cushion." Oh, yes, Mickey doesn't need cushions to pop babies out of her tum-tum, does she? Fizzy Pop Sniffles. I don't know what you're speaking about. I get colds and, when I get a cold, sometimes the sniffles linger for a while. But at least there's no doubt that my sniffles have nothing to do with the stench in the chicken coop from the rescued chickens, while speaking about the wedding that took 3 days before the wedding, and it turned out that no such thing had happened. And you did notice that even in the interview as well, that she definitely has a problem with hay fever. I don't have a problem with hay fever. I have a problem with sniffles sometimes. Cheeky, she says. Yes, I suppose it is cheeky. Have you decided on a name yet? What about Meghan or Duchess? I can't wait to find out. All the best from Portugal. Well, other people have suggested Minnie, and Minnie is a name that I actually cannot name the puppy because my heartstring, Mr. Minnie Boo, he was my rescue cat. I rescued him and 2 of his brothers when he was, I think, how old was he? 3 weeks or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I don't remember now. It was in 2003. And Mr. Minnie Boo was my heartstring. And the vet said, oh, this little mignon is not going to survive. So he did survive. And he spent his whole life on my bosom or on my shoulders, which, believe me, was pretty painful in summer because Minnie used to leap onto my shoulders. But I loved him, so I put up with it. Well, because I shortened his name to Minnie, I can't have a dog called Minnie because I think it would dishonor his memory to have another dog, or I should say another pet, named the same name. I think it would be violating his autonomy. So, but it's a very good name, and thanks for suggesting it. Canal Gamma, sorry. I could never name a dog a wry name or representative of something or someone or an idea that I didn't love. You're speaking about love. How could I name a dog? My dog. The dog that I'm going to love. Meghan. And as for Duchess, it's not nice speed. And so, no. So, but thanks for the thought, thanks for the idea, and thanks for the wit. So, to resume, Sandra says, "Hello, lovely Lady C. Love the puppies. They are so sweet, aren't they? I have a tri-cavalier and they do make the most wonderful family members. They certainly do. They absolutely do. They are pure, unadulterated love. What can be better than that? I am beyond disgusted at Scabies and the lies he is spreading about Prince William being a racist, all because of Prince William's comments when he visited a Ukrainian culture centre, that it was, quotes, for our generation alien to have war in Europe, end of quotes, brackets, or something along those lines. I was so mad, I posted on Scabies' Twitter page that I thought he was a disgrace both as a journalist and as a human being. I wonder when the royal family are going to fight back against journalists who spread blatant lies about them. They are being treated in the most vile way by sections of the press. Down under, we wouldn't put up with that rubbish and someone would have probably punched Scabies in the nose by now. If anyone deserves it, he does. Love to know your thoughts." Well, first of all, my dear, my right to hit you ends where your nose begins. So I don't think we would want anything along those lines, whether it is Antipodean, American, British, or whatever. I think it's differences of opinion can be resolved in a less perfunctory way. But I get the point, and I certainly understand the sentiment. Yes, the royal family is being treated in the vilest way by certain journalists, and it is a phenomenon that is late 20th century, early 21st century, and used to be an 18th and 19th century concept. It went out of style in the Victorian age when Queen Victoria became very revered. But before that, the press was systematically vile to the royal family, sometimes with good reason. In my book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story, I go into the whole business of the British press being satirical, puncturing people's pompous balloons, the tradition of satire, etc., etc. And sometimes it is a useful safety valve to not have too much reverence. But there's a difference between reverence and malevolence. Amid Scabies is a pusher of racism and hatred. He doesn't miss an opportunity to weaponize unfairly any issue to do with race. He is also as genuine as Meghan. He claims to be biracial. He's binational because his mother is Iranian and his father is Scottish. But he is not biracial because the Scots are Caucasian and so are the Iranians. So he's lying when he says he's biracial. He's jumped on that hobby horse, shades of Meghan, because remember, for much of her life she passed for white, and only when she discovered that it was going to be in her financial and ambition-driven interest to embrace that part of her Afro-American heritage that she had gone to such surgical and other lengths to eradicate, did she decide that she was a proud, confident woman of colour. He pushes hatred. He is a vile human being, in my opinion. Now, when my Meghan and Harry book was coming out, he did get in touch with my agent and played the pity card and played the victim card and played the this card and the that card. And I ultimately just blew him off by ignoring him, because, you know, when the fly spray doesn't work and you don't have a fly squatter, it's just best to ignore the fly. And as far as I'm concerned, he's nothing but a fly that needs to be swatted. But he has chosen his side, and he is faithfully executing his brief as the minister of propaganda that he is. Remember, Goebbels didn't always have to refer back to Adolf as to what he should and shouldn't be saying. They understood the brief. Scabies understands the brief. The brief is to denigrate William, denigrate the royal family, accuse them unfairly of things that they are not guilty of, to boost Meghan and Harry. Notice, this has to be done with Meghan and Harry's approval. If it were not being done with Meghan and Harry's approval, it wouldn't be done at all. Rank treachery. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Leonie Mango says, Lady C, I think it's worth noting that Prince William has been getting over-involved in politics relating to the Ukraine invasion. I think the statement and the donation were enough. Now his words are being misconstrued into making everyone believe he is racist, referring to the war being alien in Europe. I worry for him when he becomes king. I think he should look closely at how his grandmother handles these types of issues. Leonie Mango, I agree on one level, but on another level I think there are aspects to this question that militate a certain amount of attention. I think we need to remember that Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the state of the United Kingdom, is a member of NATO. And therefore, you could say that he is articulating and espousing the views of the government. I agree with you, he really has to be careful. I think, in fact, his comment was, I certainly get what he was trying to say and what he was trying to do. He was speaking the truth. You know, basically he was saying everybody in Europe and North America is absolutely horrified to see what happens in a war, because we haven't seen it in Europe for a while. I mean, we did see it in Srebrenica, etc., but he's too young to really remember that. But his point is valid, because this sort of situation has gone on in Syria, in Iraq, in Libya. It's still going on in Yemen. It went on in Afghanistan. You know, to an extent, he's right. We should actually, and he wasn't being racist, he was simply pointing out that people really are horrified when it's in their face. But when it's not in their face, they're not so horrified. And in my opinion, they should always be horrified. Because a life is a life is a life. And nobody deserves who is peaceable to have their life threatened by aggression. Remember what I said earlier? My right to hit you ends where your nose begins. But it's a very layered, nuanced issue. And I agree with Leonie Mengo. He should learn to keep his trap shut. Lots of peace tree, he says. Oh dear. Dear Lady C, you have been such an addiction of mine for a while. I'm delighted to hear it. Oh, I look so forward to your videos. Thank you very much. I wasn't with you from the start though, so I am interested to know, when did you start to turn against Megs? You have said again and again that even you were tricked to begin with. What events sparked the change? Well, I was really not at all personally invested in the matter. I mean, you know, I'm pretty open-minded. I give people a chance and I don't leap to judgments. And I'm not overly suspicious, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. Because if you give people a chance and you don't regulate them like a traffic warden, you will end up seeing the real person. But of course, when you're dealing with a public figure, it takes longer. I had no interest in Meghan and Harry whatsoever. The story was brought to me by people who felt that I would do justice to the truth of what was going on, because I had done justice in my Diana books. I don't think everybody was so pleased that I did justice in my Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother book. The general public, yes, but certain people closer to home, I don't think, were quite so thrilled, because I got a little bit too close to the bone there. But they understood that I had a track record of really speaking the truth and being fair. And they brought the story to me. I didn't leave this castle to seek the story. People brought it to me. And I thought, interesting, because I understood the dangers, and this was before Meghan and Harry had departed, and I understood the dangers of her conduct and her ambitions and her attitudes. You know, the rank commercialization of everything, her desire to monetize public service. I mean, how do you monetize public service? You know, it's like a wife charging a husband who she loves and who loves her for the pleasures of marriage. I mean, I know what that's called, but I don't think, and both words begin with W, but wife is a 4-letter word. The other one is a 5-letter word that rhymes with bore. And to cut a long story short, I was writing the book and I found it a very interesting exercise intellectually, because I fully understood the dynamics and the dangers, but no one at that point actually believed that Meghan and Harry would actually bolt. And a few weeks before I was due to hand over the manuscript, as it's still called, even though of course it's a notional manuscript now, they bolted, to the shock and horror of everybody. Now, I don't remember exactly when, but I remember the incident. I was in my bedroom, and a very close friend of mine who has one of the most eminent aristocratic names in this country and is hyper diaper super duper connected, and who is, there's a direct line from this friend of mine through, and I'm not going to say who, how, whatever, because I don't want to give the game away, so to speak, Harry and Meghan. And I was being used, as Diana had tried to do with me, they knew I was writing the book, and they wanted to influence me so that I would be positive about them. And I think most people would agree that I was extremely positive about them. I was also negative where it was required, but I actually was overly generous in my positivity, because I was quite determined to bend over backwards to be scrupulously fair, and not only to be fair, but to be seen to be fair. And if that meant I was going to err on the side of being generous to them, I was perfectly prepared to do that. Anyway, I got this phone call to explain to me that the reason why Meghan can't reconcile with her father is, and when I heard what this person had to say, I went ballistic. I actually said that what I was being told was evil, and I felt it then and I feel it now. Now, for legal reasons, I must make it clear that it is entirely possible that Meghan knew nothing about this. But I do not for 1 second believe that the Mercury, so to speak, the agent who was bringing the message, was making it up or lying. I don't think for a second that this person was making it up or lying. I think that what they were acting as a messenger. And at that point, I realized that I was dealing with somebody who had to be watched very carefully, because there were no boundaries. And what Harry had said in a different context applied across the board, because he is the one who said Meghan is capable of anything. And somebody who's capable of anything, in my opinion, is not somebody I like, would want to know, would want to associate with, could ever respect, no matter as I respect their attributes, their gifts. I think that people who will stoop to anything to achieve an objective? Or people, I don't want to know. So I think that answers the question, because that is the Damascene moment. That's when I realized that I wasn't dealing with an ordinary, regular, ordinarily ambitious individual. I was dealing with somebody that would stop at nothing and would scruple at nothing to achieve an objective. And I actually screamed down the phone and said that, well, I won't actually say what I said. Take it from me, it was not a pretty sight. So that hopefully answers the question. Susan 1962 says, I think it is wrong that Meghan uses her race because it benefits her now. Obviously it's wrong. And at least she has some claim to bi-racialism, but her henchman and her minister of propaganda, the purely Caucasian Amid Scabies, has none. She herself has started a race war because her sugars are those who relate to her. You're absolutely right. The hatefulness and the hatred that emanates from that quarter is beyond belief. She is misusing her mixed race status, to put it mildly, Susan 1962. She would have been horrified if she knew 5 years ago that she would be awarded an NAACP award today, or as some people say, I should say NAACP award. Yes, I'm sure. Well, maybe not 5 years ago, but I would have thought 8 years ago. My dear, when that nice Italian Maltese girl with not a drop of black blood was sashing about the place, looking for another rich white man to bag. Because remember, when Lizzie Cundy suggested to her Ashley Cole, she was beyond horrified. Why was she so horrified? Complexion might have something to do with it. Because you notice, our Megsy baby doesn't go down the brown or the black route ever. It's always religiously white. Now, you could say there's no accounting for personal taste, but I don't know. I think people who aren't racist will look at a nice guy of colour and think, yeah, I mean, Mandingo, here I come. How exciting. Not Megsy baby. No, she has an absolutely racially pure take on the horizontal, evidently. So yes, I think she does misuse her colour, and I think she has stoked up all sorts of conjecture and really racial conversations that shouldn't be taking place, because the fact of the matter is, as Martin Luther King said, it's about character, not colour. And as Morgan Freeman has said, we need to stop speaking about colour. Until we stop speaking about colour, colour is an issue. Anything that's spoken about is an issue. If it's not an issue, you don't speak about it. As simple as that. Todd Selman says, hopefully Samantha's attorney can ask about the issue of racism. And while doing that, the attorney can ask Meghan, number one, Mrs. Markle, how old are you? Well, I think she's Miss Markle or Ms. Markle. Ghastly term, Ms. So vulgar. But how old are you? Well, I know some people think she's not the age that she claims to be. But I suspect, unless the family has been seriously collusive, she was born in 1981. But that's certainly a question that can be asked, because you see, once you're deposing someone, you can ask pretty much anything you want. Of course, they don't have to answer. Number two, are you the biological mother of the children? No surrogacy. Oh dear, it's such a pity Mickey isn't here. I think I'm going to need to hug myself because I'm missing my Mickey. Mickey. Oh, nice cushion. Oh, such a pretty cushion. Oh, sorry, I'm missing Mickey. Sorry for being distracted. Sorry, the question was if I may revert to it and stop being silly, because I do miss my Mickey so much. I do miss Mickey. Cushions can be so convenient when you need to replace what needs to be replaced. Or do you remember when we were growing up, the old expression, those of you who are my age, what God has forgotten, woman must stuff with cotton? Well, that certainly would be a question that would, because of her conduct and because of the extraordinary inflation and deflation of her bumps, would be one that would warrant being asked. Number three, if surrogacy was involved and a woman donated her egg to be fertilized by Harry, was that woman white with red hair? Good question, because evidently the red-haired gene needs to be in both partners. Well, Meghan has the red-haired gene because the Markle family have a slightly reddish tinge in some respects. Meghan is what in Jamaica they used to call a red heber, which is a very sort of somebody who looked or had the features and racial characteristics of their African heritage. But they were, the nose, maybe the mouth, but certainly the nose, the facial configuration, the hair would be very much a giveaway, so to speak. But the color of the skin would be, it could be Caucasian, but there would be freckles or a reddish tinge to everything. And Meghan does have a reddish tinge to her complexion, and she does have freckles. So it's a good question to ask, because the children, to have any red, would need it from both sides of the coin, so to speak. And if that was the case, why you selected a white woman with red hair? Oh no, sorry, I think I've missed one. No, I haven't. And and if that was the case, why you selected a white woman with red hair? Were you concerned about your baby's skin color? I would really like the attorney to ask her that. Well, Todd Selman, you're very entertaining, and this is all very witty, and it certainly cuts to issues that Meghan's conduct has created and has sort of encouraged attention to be drawn to. Let's see, because you know, I have been told a very interesting thing about Meghan's identity. It's out there because I've been asked one or two questions about it. But someone, and it's not a member of the Markle family, but it's someone who's known Meghan well for pretty much all of her life, has told me that some of the rumors about Meghan and her identity are close to the truth, but not that close to be factual. And they have told me whether it is true or not, Meghan's true identity is. And I have a great deal of compassion for her if what this person said is true. Because nobody chooses to be born with a birth defect. But it's not quite the birth defect that people have asked about, but evidently her physiognomy is suggestive sufficiently of it for to have alighted upon various suspicions. It's just that, so to speak, when you go to the Bahamas, you go to Bimini instead of Nassau. They're both Bahamian islands, but they're not the same island. Let's leave it at that. Down the line, if you want to know what I was told, I'm happy to pass it on. Jane A.V. says, "Hello, Lady C. I love your videos. I find the suggestion that Meghan may hate that part of her that is black fascinating. Yes, it is fascinating, isn't it? She is reminded every single day looking in the mirror. And do you think that royal duties involving persons of colour and the trip to Africa and Australia made her hate her royal role? It was spun as her strength, but maybe she really hated it. The only post-Megxit association I'm aware of regarding colour," she skips that bit out, but it needs to be articulated, "was the visit to the Harlem School and the NAACP Awards. It could explain her arrogance also." Jane A.V., you've touched upon a really rather interesting concept, which I don't think anybody else has touched upon, except maybe peripherally. If Meghan has had at some point a great deal of perplexity about her racial identity, and she is on record as having stated that she did, the natural consequence of that is confusion and self-hatred. That means that the supposition that Meghan actually, and also let's remember as well that Meghan was brought up in a world that was not actually totally white, but was basically white. She was brought up in a prosperous Hollywood environment. The school had students of every hue, so it didn't matter what race you were, everybody was equally accepted, but they were all socio-economically a cut above the average person in the United States of America, which has more Caucasians than people of color. And evidently, according to the statistics, and if Black Lives Matter is to be believed, Caucasians still are worth more financially than people of color. So she was in the superior, in quotes, group, the advantaged group, the privileged group, passing for white. Well, that, of course, is a recipe for reinforcing self-hatred, and even if it's not self-hatred, just if you're ambitious, and there's no doubt she's ambitious, you're certainly going to go with that aspect of your identity which is going to make you travel on a smoother surface and fly down a faster highway. So she would have understood at a very early age. And also remember, she says about witnessing people asking if her mother was the nanny, and one person making a negative comment about her mother's colour. Well, I mean, she should have been brought up in Jamaica, I tell you, because no matter what your colour is, everybody makes negative comments about it, or used to. And whether you were white, brown, or black, or yellow, everybody, in quotes, felt that they could say whatever they wanted, and everybody is the ignorant and the illiterate, obviously. Well-educated and civilized people didn't make comments like that normally, unless there was something really wrong with them. But so for all of those reasons, Meghan has opted all along to maximize the Caucasian part of her identity. And yes, she cannot have been proud of being somebody of African American heritage, because she's purposely tried to eradicate all signs of it. Why doesn't she let her hair be natural? Why does her hair have to be straight? I think we can't expect her to get back the nose she was born with. I mean, and maybe, you know, the facial configuration that is amended, the way her witness statements at court had to be amended, because, you know, the original bears no relation to the finality. It does mean that we are dealing with somebody who was most likely horrified, or would have been horrified. You're right, 6 years ago, to be given an award as a black person. But it goes to show, when you're dealing with ambitious people, no matter how distasteful the aspect of their identity is to them, If it suits their agenda, they will embrace it. Now, do we understand why people like that can never be happy and that can never resolve their conflicts and can never be comfortable within themselves? They can't even be true to their own prejudices about themselves. On some level, people like that sell themselves out with the alacrity that they sell everybody else out. Antipodean Traveller says, Lady C, as Doria gave her neighbours the metaphorical finger, would you agree Meghan, with all her ensuing behaviours, gave and is still giving the royal family a massive, disrespectful, ungrateful, cruel, contemptuous middle finger also? So shameful, so disappointing. She and her man... Sorry. Oh, God. She and her manned bag could have done great work. Well, if she hadn't been the reprehensible hustler and the completely unimaginative and really limitedly ambitious individual that she was, she would have seen that she had been given the opportunity to become the most revered woman on earth. She would have ended up, had she embraced the role, done work in the Commonwealth, done work for people of colour, genuinely given public service instead of expecting, gimme. No. I'm not meeting any wretched mayor. My time's too valuable. I don't want to be wasting 20 minutes with someone, as Trev used to say. If you can't give it 5 years, don't give it 5 minutes. Well, if you can't give me 5 million, don't give me 5,000. I don't want 5,000. I want 5 million. And I'm not giving my time for nothing. My mother said, never give the milk away. Never. Charge for everything. Monetize everything. She would have been, now, had she stayed in the family, and had she just executed her role with a modicum, she didn't even have to do it that well, she just needed to do it. Everybody else would have dressed it up and she would have been revered now. Yes, she's giving a massive finger to the royal family. Remember her comment that the Queen doesn't own the word royal? Let me tell you something. In my opinion, if Meghan didn't have the massive chip on her shoulder that she feels entitled to indulge, using colour as the excuse, she wouldn't have such overweening arrogance, impertinence, and attitude. She really is a living nightmare of what mixed race people who loathe themselves can be. In my opinion, she is the living embodiment of self-hatred, spewing its venom forth to all and sundry. And notice, all and sundry are always white. Although I have no doubt that she can be equally cruel if it is called for with people of colour. Look at how she's iced the Raglan and the Johnson families. She hasn't only iced the Markle family. You talk about a massive chip on the shoulder. I don't know why Harry didn't marry a genuinely black woman, a decent woman, a proper woman, instead of this farce that passes itself off as a cafe au lait version of a glamour puss with artifice everywhere. Artificial nose, artificial hair, artificial colouring, artificial. A study in artifice. I think we are witnessing an exercise, an instruction really, in what truly disturbed mixed race issues are about. Now, the truth is, loads of people, most people, I would imagine, certainly the healthiest percentage of mixed race people don't have any of these problems. But sadly, there is a lot of research that has been done that shows that a small, or if not small, a discomforting proportion of mixed race people do have these problems. And it's usually the ones who are cold-hearted and overambitious, because most of the mixed race people I know don't behave like this. They don't despise that part of themselves which they at one stage thought was inconvenient, and when they discovered it was convenient, embraced it. Well, sadly, I think this is it. I have 2 more questions that I wanted to cover, but I'm afraid I'm not going to inflict myself upon you any longer. This has taken up rather more time than I thought it would have, and therefore maybe the questions can save for the next time. So without further ado, let me say thank you very much for listening. If you have enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and remember, keep the questions coming in. This can't be done without you, and I have to tell you, I am so delighted at the quality of questions and comments that I receive. They really are absolutely right up there. Thank you so much. God bless and goodbye.